Hello, I'm Jason Roten with Primitive Life Training, and have a good little video I want to do for y'all today on how to make a primitive slingshot. No, I'm just picking. It's how to make a survival slingshot. Something that you could use in a survival situation if you were out there and there was some small game and you had the right things to make this with, then you could make it and be able to get you some food and everything. I don't have any of the elastic to make the side bands for it. So I will have to leave that part out of the video and just pretty much tell you what to do with it. Basically what I'm going to be showing you is how to make the base for the slingshot, which is going to be this right here. Now, I like to use privot hedge for a lot of things. It's a real good wood. It dries hard and it's real strong once it does dry. So I use it for a lot of things like this. When I was younger, I made bows out of it, and once they dry, they're pretty good little bows for a youth. So, but what you want to do is you want to choose you a limb that has two limbs splitting off from it and making this Y. And so you have a handle, and then you have where your projectile is going to be going through. And I've done a little bit of the work kind of to take away from the time of doing this video, but basically I'm going to show you, how to get this into shape and get it ready for you to fix up the bands on it. And so here's the first thing, is once you get your limb, you need a couple of knives. And this is mine. This is my main knife that I use to cut the wood. When I'm trimming down this right here, I'll cut into it, you know what I'm saying? And this knife really holds up good. It's good for stripping the bark real fast. You want to make sure your knife is sharp. A dull knife's just going to mess this up. So you want a knife that's going to take that bark off just super easy. And so this is what I use for most of my bark removal and for trimming it up. Alright, the next knife that you're going to want to have is some kind of little pocket knife or something. Carving knife will work, but something with a thin, small blade, so that you can get into little places like this. And here in a minute, when I show you how to do knots and stuff, you'll see where this comes in handy. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get your limb, okay, and you want to go ahead and start removing your bark and stuff, except for you want to stop if there's any knots that's going to be in any of your limbs or your handle. You don't want to go around them just yet. You want to basically just get whatever you can get, just going around it sort of real fast, avoiding the knots and not going any deeper than the bark. You don't want to get into the wood when you're doing this. That's another reason that a good sharp knife is required, because a good sharp knife will just take that bark right down to the wood, take it off right down to the wood, and you know, you're not cutting into this yellow. All you're doing is just real lightly removing all that green. When you come to a knot, just stop, go around it. Get what you can get with this larger knife, and leave the rest. Now you see I cut into the wood a little bit here, see, but it's above the line where I'm going to cut that limb off. Below that, I don't want to get into that wood. Just like if you're making a bow, and that's going to be another video I'm going to try to do soon. You don't want to get into that wood on the belly side of it. So you don't want to get into this wood on this. You just want to go just deep enough to take that bark off. And you want to, it's going to take you a little while to work it slow, but you just want to get just the bark off all the way around it. Avoid the knots and just work the bark off. Little bitty knots, go ahead and just shave them off, because they're only bark deep. If it's just little bitty, there's really no hump there, but you can tell there's a little spot. Take it right down to it and then just shave it right off. And most of the time, see a little spot like that's what I'm talking about. Well, underneath it, there's no limb or nothing growing. It's just a spot where it started trying to make one, I guess, and decided it was going to make this one because it was just right below it. But anyway, and you see what I'm doing. I'm just clearing right down to the bark. I mean to the wood underneath the bark. Taking my time, because this is a sharp knife and I don't want to cut myself. I'm already fingerless because of a knife. Well, I got fingers, but I'm less one finger because of a knife. And me not treating it with respect. It was my fault, and I lost a finger over it. So be careful when you're using knives. Take your time at this and do it slowly so that you don't mess it up. Once you get done, you'll be so proud of yourself. And if you have to do this in the wild, this is a necessary step, because you don't want to be pulling back on this thing, and because you shaved a knot off, it snap and break, and that limb come back and hit you in the face. See, even this knot right here, I went around it. I shaved all around it. I did not take any of that knot off. We'll do it later and I'll show you how. Because you got to do it without removing any of the wood. You just want to smooth it out later on with just a little bit of sanding. I mean little bit. Some of these you can kind of take it off a little bit, but you have to be so precise with it. I'll show you, that's where that little knife comes in handy. But you just want to go through here, shaving as much of that bark off as you can, going right next to the wood. You don't want to shave any of the wood. See, look at here. You see how all I've got. There's only bark there. There we go. None of that wood's there. I'm not carving into the wood. I'm just pretty much scraping this outer bark off. Once you get it down, it will be just right, and that limb will stay strong. Once it dries, you won't have to worry about it snapping. Be as easy as you can be with it, and it will come out so nice looking in the end. If you just go through carving the stick and getting it done just as quick as you can, you're just hot dogging it. It's not going to be the piece that it would if you had took your time and just really done it right. You run up against a little knot like that, stop, peel your bark off the rest of the way. It's not going to go any further, just like that. Don't cut that knot off. Leave it for right now. If it's a little bitty knot, it's right down to the bark, there's not very much of a hump, you cut right through that one. No problem, because it's not going to be very much under here anyway. And you can remove that wood on the other side later like that, and you'll be alright. You just have to get it all down to the same layer, and that's another video. Trust me. You really have to keep your knife sharp, and you really have to be precise with it. If not, if you're hot dogging it, man, you're just going to have a carved up piece of wood. And it might work, it might not. But you want to know it's going to work when it needs to. You want to be confident. If you're 3 days down without no food, you got to have something. You want to know, hey, I'm fixing to make something that's going to work. And you want it to work. You ain't really too concerned with making a museum quality piece, but you still want to take your time, do it right, do it effectively, and have something that, hey, once you are done, you get your belly full, you're ready to move on. You can stick this in your pack, or your back pocket, or your cargo pants pocket, and you can carry it with you and use it in another location. Anytime you're in a survival situation and you go on the move, you want to make and carry things with you that are, going to help you in the area that you're going to. And this can help you in any area. Now, you can see I've got most of that bark removed, so now I'm going to show you, once you get your limbs where, they're basically the same height, at you shooting, you want to go level across there, and that's where you want to cut at. And you're basically going to just cut into that. I mean, try to ram it deep when you cut into it. Cut into it. Cut into it. You want to go away from you, though. If not, you'll wind up with a pinky like mine. Once you get it all cut around, just stick it on your knee there and break it off, and you should have something that looks like that. Now, the first thing you want to do is get all that off. So just, with your sharp knife, respecting it, watching out for your fingers, you're going to just kind of smooth the top of that thing off, like so. Not going to really pay no attention to doing anything in detail just yet. And this is what you're going to basically have. Now, I can take this much off, and that eliminates 2 or 3 knots for me to take that much off. This shortens it and makes it more compact. Once you make it more compact, it's more travel friendly. And you want things in a survival situation that are travel friendly. And so you just want to cut you a line around it like that right there. And what I do is just start shaving that off. Just little bit by little bit, shave it off. Like I said, that eliminated 2 knots for me that I ain't got to worry about. I just cut them right off because they're no longer going to be part of it. This is a video I've wanted to do from the very beginning when I first started doing videos. I'm glad I waited now. If I probably would have messed it up. You can carve designs into the bottom of this thing, like what I'm cutting off. Instead of cutting it off, maybe you want to arrowhead out the bottom of it or something. I mean, you can do something like that as long as it's not in the palm of your hand or above your hand. You don't want to carve anything into it like that above your hand, because it's just going to weaken your limbs or your handles. So like I said, we're in a survival situation. We're not looking for museum quality piece. We're looking for something that works. And this is what we're left with. You see? That's all I need. I can even shoot an arrow with this. So, now I've got most of it debarked. Let me go ahead and get the rest of it off. I think I got 1 or 2 knots. I got to show you how to work around one. You try to get it as knotless as possible when you're choosing your wood, but with privet hedge, you're gonna have knots all up and down that limb. I'm doing another video on atlatls too, and I use privet hedge for that. It's here, it's ready, it's abundant, and so I use it. And that's what you want to do if you're in a survival situation, is use what's there, readily available and abundant. Now, if you do happen to cut into the wood, just go backwards and take that little bit that you cut into it off. That little bit should be alright. It's when you go taking a knot off, you wind up with that big of a strip taken out of your wood. And so this here breaks, and that's why you want to leave these knots like that. Now, I left 2 of them, so now comes this little knife. And basically what you want to do, cutting away from you, is go right down and just real thin strips. Cut that away from that knot, leaving the knot but taking all the bark that's around it off. And once you do it, come back and just get the rest of that and peel it off. And that's what you're left with, is that whole knot, but just barkless. You see how it comes to a little point right there. We'll talk about that later, getting that off. All you do is just sand it down a little bit with some sandpaper. Now what I'm doing is I'm just kind of going back over that and taking the rest of that bark that's on that tree, on that limb, off. Yes, I'm sorry, it is raining here again, so, but you just want to real lightly in thin strips take that rest of that bark off. Here's another knot. I've got most of it away from it already, so I'm just going to go around real lightly, not cutting into the wood, just taking the bark off. And then, like I said, I'll come back and I'll hold my knife like this so that I don't cut my finger. My finger will get hit with my finger first, and that's how far away my knife is. So in these little spots, just shave that off little bit by little bit, then pull it off. Pull it off. That will allow you to work it off and not remove any of the wood around those knots. You're just getting that bark off. That is a very crucial knot. If I mess that up, it'll compromise this whole limb. It'll break right there. So I gotta leave that one. That one's not quite so bad. I can kind of remove it because it's going to be right around the area where I'm going to have the string tied, but I still don't need to just cut it off. If you're going to, start at the very tip top of that and work your way down until you just cut that tip off. And you get it rounded. Come back from the other side. Shave just that tip off of it. Pull all that wood away from it that's part of the bark, and that's what you're left with. That's not going to hurt anything. And then you just go around and get all the rest of that bark off, being careful not to get into your wood. Anywhere you see any bark, get it, because that's going to hold moisture. You'll think it's dry and it's not, and you'll pull on it and it'll crack right where you had that bark. And so you really want to go around and make sure you got it all off. I'm able to sort of do it fast because I know what I'm doing. You may have to take just a little bit more time with it. But in the end, you'll be glad that you did take your time with it, because it'll look nice and it'll work. Once you get all the bark removed from around them knots, it kind of is a little bit easier. You're just going around knocking the bark off the limb. You ain't really got to worry about working around anything, but you really want to pay close and special attention around the knots, especially on bows. When you're holding a bow like this is the belly side away from you. You do not want to take any of those knots down on a bow because that weakens it. So you just leave the knot. I mean, that fits right in between them two fingers that I still got left. It's not bothering me. So just leave it. Once, like I said, you know, until you get all that bark off of there, and see, I still got little strips like this. You can see all that bark right there I've got to take off. So once you get all that off there, you can start working on other aspects of it. But till you do, you got to work at it real slow and easy like, and get all that off. That just holds moisture in, prevents it from drying, and causes rot, and you don't want any rot. I cut this limb green, and that's another thing you want to do. Make sure that you cut it green and then let it dry from that point on. We're going to put a little wood glue on here on either end. If you're out in a survival situation, you want to use something like pine pitch or something while it's drying to keep those ends from splitting. Now from this point on, let me try to get this set up here. Hello everybody. Alright, so yesterday when I was doing the slingshot video, I got to the end and I was going to say, you know, from this point on I'm just going to put it up and let that glue dry, and that's what I did. And so here we are today. My little pet bee, she's up here flying around. You may see her blocking the camera and all. What we're going to do today is we're going to use this rubber band. This is just for show. I mean, it will work. I mean, this thing stretches, so you know, in a survival situation, if I could find these resources, then I would have it made. Now the first thing we want to do is going to be with the slingshot itself, and we're going to get our little knife back out while my little bees come up here and just crowd me. They'll fly all up here sometimes, especially if they smell something good that they like. They're just right down there. So alright, first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut us out some little notches all the way around this thing on both these limbs for that string that we tie the rubber band down with to the stick, keep it from slipping. And then of course we got us a piece of leather here, and I'll explain more about that here in a little bit. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start out, we're going to come down at least, you know, about a 1/2 inch. That's going to be your top line, and you're just going to go in a straight line all the way around it. In the case of my slingshot here, it's not going to be exactly straight, but you want it straight with the ground. And then you're going to come down about 1/4 inch and go around again. Like I said, on both limbs. And then you're going to start carving that out. And you may have to kind of unorthodoxly do it at first. As you get it carved out a little bit, we're not going to go very deep with it. Most of the time I'll go around the hard way and carve it out first. And then when you come back this way, when you go back, you'll cut that trench just about completely out. Unless you do that. Cut the tip end of your finger off like I've done before. But you're basically going to just go around that limb, notching out a notch about 1/2 inch down. And you're going to go about 1/8 of an inch deep, maybe a little deeper, closer to 1/4 inch deep, but you don't want to go too deep. Depending on how deep how big a diameter limb you have. If you got a pretty thick limb, then you can go a little deeper into it, but 1/8 of an inch or a little more is plenty. You're just wanting to sink that thread with that band or whatever you use for the elastic, sink it into, and keep that from slipping. I will show you here in a minute, once we get this done, how to tie that band. And so that it won't slip. Once you get it cut, that notch cut all the way around one limb, just go to the next one and do it the same way. And like I said, be real careful, be real slow and methodical about it, because you slip and cut a finger doing this easy, and that's no fun. And in a survival situation, you're pretty much in trouble if you slit your finger open, or you dang near cut a digit off. And it's very simple to do. It'll almost do it all on its own. But most of the time it's from being careless, not planning how you're going to cut something, and not figuring out how you can do it without cutting yourself. And basically this is what you're wanting to do. And you do that on the other one, right straight across from that one. once we get these cut out, we can get started on making the other properties of it. With this, you can shoot rocks at squirrels, rabbits, anything like that. Small game birds. Even a few creepy crawlies. Fish in shallow water. Anything you could pop a shot at with a slingshot. This is a slingshot too. I mean, that went right in, and it's a wonder I hadn't just slipped my hand over. That's why I say be careful. I try to hold it in a way where it won't slip like that. For some reason that time it did. Most of the time when I'm coming this way, I put my thumb on there, but my thumb slipped off, so gotta be careful. Sometimes you get lucky. I've cut my hands so much over the years, bushcrafting and being out there living and trapping and fishing and hunting, and it just almost don't bother me anymore, really, to get cut. Most of the time I just super glue it up. It's not laid open to the bone, or my fingers hanging off. I just super glue it shut and hoorah. Or Zach Wild used to say, pour some beer on it. I don't drink beer, not no more, so I ain't got no beer to put on it. I just have to rub some dirt in it. And we're just about done with this limb too. And go around it and do a little clean up on a few spots, make it a little bit less pointed and more rounded, and get little ridges in here when you're cutting this out this way. You gotta go back and make sure all those little ridges are cut out of there and all that smooth, because if you don't, sure as the world, that'll be where it cuts your string, and one of them pulls, you'll be on cue and fixing to let it go, and your string will pop. And so I'll make sure I get all them ridges cut now. And here's what we got. Now, next thing that we're going to do is talk about the other parts of this. And most of the time I'd use some false sinew, but I don't have any, so I'm going to use paracord. And basically we're just going to let me cut this knot off here. We're going to take this paracord and just strip it out of there. We got all these cords here. We're going to take one of them for one side, one of them for the other side. Now comes the fun part. You can use inner tube or one of these rubber bands like this, some of that stretchy tube you get from the doctor, but you want to cut it half and half. You want equal sides. This band is pretty stout, so I figure it's going to do well with this. Now then, we're going to loop this all the way over like this. Going to take the string, put it right in the middle. Make sure we're in that. Going to take one side of it and try not to get the other side caught up in it. And let it just hang down. Keep that real tight. Pull it real tight. And then pull it down somewhere. We're going to take this one and we're going to go back the opposite way with it. And I didn't go the opposite way, I went the same way. So we're going to go back this way like I started to do the first time. And then we're just going to tie that string in a knot. Double overhand knot to lock it down. One more knot for good luck. Then we're going to cut the excess string off. Going to just take our knife, run it up in there and cut that off. And then, if you got a stick to fire or something, you can take it and just sort of, melt those ends down a little bit and let them touch. Now, there's you one side, and I got a pretty good little bit of a pull with it, so that's in there pretty tight. That one's not going to slip neither. Now we're going to work on this side, and we're going to do the exact same thing on this side. Take our string, make sure that we get it pretty well halved. Gonna let one side hang down. With this side, gonna go around backwards this way. With this one here, we're going to go back around this way. Get back to here, we're going to tie us 3 knots, one right on top of the next. Cut off our excess string. And melt this excess here down. And now you got your 2 bands. And what we're going to do with it, this is a piece of leather I got out of an old glove, right out the palm of it. We're going to run this band up through a hole that I punched with an awl. we're going to run that band up through there. It's kind of hard at first because you want your holes small. Got to make them small, which means once you go to try to pull that band through there, it's not going to be all that easy to do. This is a very short slingshot, and so I'm going to try to get this to tie where I'll still have a little bit of the band to work. If I ever get it to tie, we'll be in good shape. Oh, I pulled too hard. Not a good thing. Because now, look how much difference we are. And I'll never get that to tie, so. Well, I just messed it up. So, I don't have any more bands, but basically you tie this on here, and you got you a slingshot. And these bands can be changed, if I could get me some inner tube, that would be good. It wouldn't break. But oh well, that's the way it goes sometimes. I'll probably cut this loose and put this up until I can find me some inner tubes to make this with, and make my strings a little longer, and then I'll put this in my survival pack. But sorry that it broke. I was trying to be careful with it. Didn't work out that way. In a survival situation, I would have to figure out some kind of way to make that work, or build some other kind of weapon. These little bees, they just fighting with the flies that are out here and stuff. Now she's crawling on my phone. Anyway, this is Jason Roten with Primitive Life Training. I hope you enjoyed. Sorry I didn't succeed with this video. If I had some more of them bands, or I had me some bicycle inner tube tires, I could real quick get me some more, another band, and replace that one and everything. But maybe I'll do a follow-up video later on, and maybe be able to have some, or have something that will. Wait just a minute. I may have a solution to our problem. And if I do, that'll be wonderful, because what I'm thinking I got here is way better than them rubber bands. And I do mean way better. Oh yeah, I do. Here it is. I knew I had some of this somewhere. And this will be a whole lot better. It's a whole lot easier to work with. stretchy band. I knew I had some. So here we are. We're gonna go equal length and cut it off. Now, basically, we're gonna cut this here off, but we're gonna do the same thing that we did with these rubber bands, except we're going to it's going to be a tube this time instead of a rubber band. Now, same thing. Going to spit a little bit in it and then start trying to work this over this. And you may have to take your knife and whittle this down just a little bit to get it to slip over the limb there. May have to taper that limb head up there just a little. Just to get it going there. Take a little spit. Just work it right over top of it. See, it'll slide right down on there. And then get the other one. Actually, no. See, I'm getting ahead of myself again. Really and truthfully, first thing we need to do is to get this thing out here. And to do that, I'm going to have to cut a little bitty notch out right here. And so, I don't want to go too far into it. I just barely want to cut into it so that I have me a little hole right here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to feed this through this hole here in the pouch. And yes, it's going to be tight. It's going to be hard to get it to go through. You're going to probably cuss a lot. Let me find something here that'll work. May have to get you a stick or something like what I'm doing here. Be able to poke enough of it through that hole to grab onto. That's going to be your hard part, because like I said, you don't want those holes to be very big at all. I punched them in there with an awl, so I'm going to try not to mess this little deal up. Sometimes when I'm not doing a video, these type of things work out just perfect. It's when I'm doing a video that they want to go bad. So another thing you can do is line it up with that hole. And cut just a corner of that off like that. That way, maybe it'll go through the hole in the pouch a little easier. If you can ever get it to go through there, you got it. Alright, so Gonna take this end, gonna wet this end. You're gonna take that and work it down through there until you get to that hole. And it's hard to get started, but once you do, put a little spit in that hole up there and it will, or some water, and keep that all lubricated around up through there, and then you just slide it through there. Lubricate a little bit more. Slide it through there. It'll take you a minute sometimes to get it to work down through there. And yes, sometimes it's gonna pop back out. And so, this is how I have to do it every time too, and everybody. I have to cut an end off this end too, like that. Get your tube all good and lubricated. Gotta do nasty stuff in a survival situation. It's going in there a little easier. Tell you what I probably need to do is cut some of this one here off. Make that just a little shorter. And now maybe I won't have to push it through there as far. Yeah, that worked a little better. Just gotta get it go in there and stay. Who said survival was easy? Sometimes it's not, folks. Sometimes it's trial and error, and you just gotta, figure some things out. Figure out how you can get something to work pretty easy. And try to make it work that way. Don't always want to. Sometimes you get very frustrated. Sometimes I get so frustrated trying to do stuff that I just want to quit, but that's the last thing you want to do in a survival situation is give up. I just keep trying. If, you know, if I'm in a situation where, I can't give up. Don't ever give up. Because eventually you will get it. If you try hard enough. Work hard enough at something. Alright, now let's see if I can get it out of here. And yeah, if I can just get it to pull through without slipping out up here. There we go. I just pull it all the way back around. Oh boy, please don't break me. Just got a whole nother thing. These little stretchy bands, they are something else sometimes to try to do something like this with. There we go. Finally got her to slide. I just got to keep pulling this back around. You sweat for this too, you know.
Daddy.
Get inside.
Okay.
Basically what you're going to do is you're going to end up with it like that. Then we'll even that end up. Put a little spit in it. And then start working it over our limb. And you want to go past that little notch that we cut in there a while ago. You want to go past it. Now we got to do this side. So we're going to cut us a little notch out right there in the end. We got plenty of cord here. We're going to cut us a little notch out there in the side. That'll make us a little hole right there. Man, I thought about this before I ended the video a while ago. I was sure fixing to end it on a sad note too. I was just distraught that I was gonna have to end that video and it wasn't gonna be a success. I wasn't gonna get done what I was trying to do, but cut this off now. Oh. Alright. Cut this end here off. Spit in that a little bit. Set your knife down so you don't cut your fingers off. And go to running that tube through there. Get it come out the other side. This one's gonna work a little bit easier than the other one did. Ooh. Dribble. Just gonna wet that tube down with it so it slide real easy like that. And you're gonna get down to that point where it flips inside out. Sometimes it does it hard, and sometimes it does it easy. Golly. Once you get it to that point, you got it beat. You just pull it tight. And then you want to turn it where you got your pouch just right. You want the center of your pouch to be right there. And so we're going to cut this off right here. Just below it. That's all the waste I had. Spit down in that thing. May have to cut this tip down just a little bit more. Try this again. Gonna have to wet the whole thing down, I guess. Lot of daggum touch-up work sometimes you have to do. To get that just right. So that it will slide like it's supposed to. Sometimes it just wants to be a butt. You don't get everything to work right all the time. That one side there is just a little thick. And you just keep working till you get it right. And it slides right over it. And when it does, you'll be like, woohoo, finally. Let's try her again. A lot of people's gonna get grossed out by that, but like I said, in a survival situation, you gotta let that gross factor go. If you don't, it's gonna cost you. You could die very easily just because you passed up something that was, available to eat, and you were just too grossed out by it. Now that we've got that done, I'm going to try to unroll that just a little bit to get it to lie flat. And again, we'll take us a string. Gonna have to work a little bit harder with it like this, but alright, we're gonna let one hang down. We're gonna take this one here and just go around it. We won't have to make as many passes around this as we did with the other. So after I get one or two passes with that one, I'm going to come back around with one or two passes with this one. Tie me an overhand knot. Tie me another one on that one. This time we'll just do 2 knots. Pull it real tight. Cut off your excess string. Get you another string. For the other side, you see what I done. And we're going to repeat that process with this side. 1 or 2 wraps that way. A wrap or 2 that way. 2 overhand knots. 1 on top of the other. Cut off our excess. And then we'll take our lighter or hot stick if we're not lucky enough to have a lighter. And we're just going to sort of melt that string down and fix it where it won't come unraveled. We don't want to melt anything else. We don't want to melt the knot. We really don't want to melt the, we don't want to get the red band hot at all. We just want to melt that knot down where it won't come loose. And then all you do is you'll load your little pouch up there and shoot. And just to see, hey, we'll just take a weird rock, piece of quartz. We'll see if we can hit this can over here. Oh yeah. And there you go. And you can literally take this, you know what I'm saying, and just wrap it up, stick it in your pack. And that's all you need. And you can take down a squirrel with it, you can take down a rabbit with it. And I mean, I'm stretched out with it. And so that's really all you gotta do. I'm gonna have to fix this one side. I didn't get it tight enough. And I don't know what I did with my knife. I don't think I put it back in my pocket. Well, yeah, I did too. Yeah, I didn't tie this one over here tight enough. It done slipped loose. Trial and error. But you keep trying until you can't do no more error to it. Now, since I cut a lot of that off, I have to go back in here, it looks like, and cut my trench back out, because I shaved a lot of it off, obviously, when I was getting it ready. So trial and error is going to happen. Sometimes it'll work the first time for you, whatever it is you're trying to do out there in nature. Sometimes it'll work the very first time, sometimes it won't. Try building a log cabin and getting almost all the way through it, and you didn't do something right with the wall and one of the walls fall down. Alright, so everything was saving to my SD card. That's why my phone kept shutting off. But anyway, I got her fixed back up, got her done real tight, and it still works real good. So like I said, you know, this would be real good for going in your pack, real good for rabbit hunting, squirrel hunting, and you made it. So that's the big thing. Sorry about the video turning off the way it did. Things like that just happen, so I edited it into a full video all together with the other parts of the video. This is Jason Roten with Primitive Life Training. Hit the like and subscribe button below, and share my channel. We got a group on Facebook, Primitive Life Training, Primitive Life page. The Primitive Life Training group says Primitive Life Training, and then in parentheses it says training with nature's provisions. So the page is just Primitive Life Training. We also have a page called Primitive Life Gear, where I sell some of the things that I make, and we have a group, Primitive Life Trade Blanket, where people from the group can go, and that's the main theme of the group, is selling your bushcraft arts and crafts. So we also have a bartering group, where if you want to barter, you know, instead of buy and sell, you can do that too. So I'm gonna get off here, get this cleaned all up and everything, and get ready for the next video. This is Jason Rote with Primitive Life Training. Hope you enjoyed.